the, I guess, announcer, whatever you want to call it. And I think, you know, Claudia is one of the board members, and Jean, our other board members with us, and there's a lot of other people that should probably be announced because you're all important, but we don't have a lot of time. So I think we should at least salute the flag. So I'd like us also salute the flag. Well, let's salute. We don't have a flag. It's her fault. Salute me. This evening, can you hear me? Okay, this evening, this is Lynn's presentation as the president of the board. Jean and I had the opportunity with Eric and Jerry, thank you, my mind gets a little slow, to observe this presentation. A lot of it was put together by Lynn, and we did have the opportunity to ask questions, to look at it, and with the help of Jerry and Eric, who had actually put the presentation up for us. And this is the presentation by Lynn explaining what he feels and we feel is our community, and kind of giving you some really good information on what is happening in the community, the demographics of the community, some of the concerns that we have. And so I'd like to say, Lynn.
Thank you, Claudia. As the board president, I'm the chief executive officer for our community. And the chief executive officer has a responsibility to do more than just look at the day-to-day operations. In any corporation or large organization, the chief executive officer is expected to have a vision, to look to the future, to identify opportunities and concerns that may come up 2, 3, 5 years in the future, and then make the appropriate changes or looking at what we should stop, what we should start, what we should invest in, new technologies or what have you. Of course, that doesn't necessarily apply completely here, but it gives us some thought. So in order to do that, let's see if I got this right, the first thing you have to do is understand the organization. I've been here for over 10 years. I thought I understood the organization. But in the last few weeks, with the benefit of First Service and Jerry Mubo there, I've learned a lot more about the organization because I asked questions. She has a tremendous database. She provided me with some of the answers to questions I was asking, and I now know a lot more about the organization. I've done some queries with another HOA that's gone through what we're about to go through, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, about what our future is going to challenge us with. I'm going to establish our vision of things that I think we need to be doing more of than we're doing now, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll chart the course. This is a early photo of where we are right now. In understanding the organization, I wanted to know how it came to be that we're here. So you go back and we can check the written records and find out, when PEJO started building. But I wanted to know why PEJO thought about building here in the first place. And I couldn't find anybody around here who could tell me that. So I kept asking around, and I finally found downtown some old timer. And I said, can you tell me why Mr. K decided to build here. He says, well, one day way back when, he rode out here in his camel, because there ain't no water. He sat down, he got out a tape measure and a compass, and he started pacing off and putting in some stakes. And a bunch of the local Indians, they came up, they looked at him, and they just shook their heads and shook their heads. And he looked at them and he said, I'm going to build an oasis here. There's going to be fountains, waterfalls, running water, lush vegetation, green grass, and people will come here in the thousands to live here. And the Indians did this. And he said, all I need is for people to want to come out here in the first place. And the Indian chief, and his eyes lit up, and he smiled, and he says, we built a casino. They come. So that's how we all got here. One way or another, we're paying. You can see the Potrero Creek running right through there. And if you get a close-up, right here, you see Season Circle up there. You see the two the circles in the front. This little, that's a creek that runs through our parking lot. And you know, we do have a waterfall there at the end of it. And this is over here at Canary Creek, and this is Potrero Creek. So we're built on almost an island with where you're sitting right now. And that's what they started with, and they started building. Now, one thing about any community is the builder can only do certain things. They can build walls, they can build houses, they can build streets. They can't build a community. We do that. We move in here, and we become the community. We take that skeleton and we give it life. So that's what we have done. And it all started out great. We were building several hundred houses and selling them at the beginning, or I should say the builder was. And many of us moved in 2005, 6, and 7, and part of 8. And then the housing industry collapsed, and we stalled out. And when we stalled out, this is kind of what we had here. We had this area here, here's the creek again. We had this area pretty well built out. That's what's known as Phase A. If you're an old-timer, you understand Phase A and B and C. If you've been here just a few years, you probably don't understand the phases, but I'm going to talk quite a bit about that tonight. If you go across the creek here, you have Phase B. And Phase B goes up to the power lines. And the power lines are a real dividing line for us. I think of them as the equator. They separate our Four Seasons development. And we had a few over in here. And then we stalled out in our building. At that time, there were a few houses put up over here because they had a view. And you could sell those houses because the people wanted the view. So we almost came to a complete halt in building at that point in time. And what the builder did, which is probably good from the builder's standpoint, is he got on the horse that he'd been riding all along that said, we're all the same, we're all going to have front yard taken care of, everything's going to be common area, and he got on a different horse. And he got on this other horse that said, you're going to take care of your own front yards, we're going to have limited common area, and things are going to be different for you. And that changed the nature of our community in a lot of ways that will be with us forever. We ended up with 556 homes that now have front yard cost center. This area right here, this is the Cricket Creek Gate. That area is the Springdales. The Springdales are a condominium. There was supposed to be a second condominium up here on this plateau, right here. They stopped that. There are no more condominiums. But that's a dense area of population. The second thing they stopped was the monarchs. The monarchs are right here and right there. The monarchs are the only property in our community that we do backyard maintenance for, as well as front yard maintenance. So again, something unique. Well, when the builder got on that other horse, he stopped making the Springdale model and the Monarch model and the Arbor model and switched to some new models. So what you have here is a change in the type of housing that we have in the area. You can see what happened here in 2000 and 2008. 2009 we stalled out, and in 2010 there was virtually nothing here. It was quiet. It didn't hear one riveting machine or roof being built or anything. And let me tell you, you had 700 or 800 very worried homeowners as to the future of this development. Because had they gone belly up then, we would have all been in real deep trouble. The price of housing changed. Those of us who bought back when the high demand was there suddenly saw the value of our house cut by 40%. So that made a big change. We finally started recovering. Well, and this last year, you can see we're doing quite well. The first quarter this year, they sold 24 houses. And the current plan right now, the schedule we're on, is that 2020, they will have built all the houses and left. So that's what's happening right now. But a big change with the population has to do with the fact that over this 10 years, we find ourselves in a situation where the newcomers, and again I have to generalize because I don't have specific data and don't want it, are 10 years younger than us. But they are not us, just 10 years younger. They are completely different. The social scientists tell us that who you are as an adult depends on what happened in your development period as a teenager and as a young 20-year-old. Dramatic things may have happened that affect your outlook. If you grew up and became 65 back in 2007, 2008, you grew up in the 60s. The 60s were what the Chinese call interesting times. We had 3 assassinations: President Kennedy, his brother Robert, and Martin Luther King. We had a war that lasted throughout the entire decade. We had a draft. The draft not only affected our young men, it affected their wives and their sweethearts as well. Because it postponed some weddings, it accelerated others. It separated families. It conditioned what we eventually became for the rest of our lives. We also, of that period, grew up with maybe a black and white television. Maybe we saw Howdy Doody or Sky King for an hour a day. But our entertainment, if we were indoors, was playing cards. There's a lot of card players in the group that moved in here initially. More so than the ones that grew up 10 years later, because they were looking at Sesame Street running endlessly. They had entertainment right there in their house. I tried to find out what the defining moments were for the 70s, and I came up with disco and leisure suits. I'm sure there's some others. But, you know, the times were different. And so the people that move in today and in the future, who are 10 years younger than us, have different wants, needs, and ideas. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way it should be. Our parents knew we were all going to the devil from the day we listened to rock and roll. You know, it's understandable that different generations have different ideas. The main thing is we have to understand it and accommodate it and encompass it into what we do. Let's see. Okay. I apologize that I couldn't make this any bigger, but I'll try to walk you through it. This is the builder's plan. And there's a couple things I want to point out. We have lodge number 1, where you're sitting now, lodge number 2, and to be built lodge number 3. Scheduled to start construction in November of this year and finish by April of next year, which is probably August of next year. Those are the 3 nodes that pull us together and separate us. Lodge number 1 has some facilities that will not be duplicated in the other lodges. This ballroom is a good example. Smitty's is another example. That's a node that pulls us all together, regardless of where we live in this community. The summit, it has an indoor pool, but really we don't talk much while we're swimming in the pool. So it's not really a node in that sense. Lodge number 3, still kind of in the drawing board, but it looks like it's going to be more athletic, with some recreation. It will be sort of a node for the people that live down in this phase down here, which is phase C and phase D, and eventually phase E. But it won't be the same node as number 1 up there. So number 1 will always be the node that brings us all together. And when we make plans for this facility, expanding it, changing walls and what have you, we have to keep in mind that the people out here and down here and the people yet to buy a house here will still look at that as the central node. Right now, people come in down here on Potrero, they hit the freeway here on Four Seasons Circle and zoom up and all the way around over to here. A few people come in here at Crooked Creek and they cut right in there to the Springdales or this area down here in Phase A. You know, traffic patterns are going to change, but right now that's the traffic patterns. We have people down here, and I say this having walked around and handed out flyers and talked to people who have never been over here. And we have people over here who don't know about a little park we have over in this area here called Paseo. Beautiful little park that we took over from Caledonia and rebuilt into a very nice place. Simply because they come in up there at the top and zoom around. So we need to do a little bit better job of getting people exposed to the entire community. That's going to come. Eventually, the other areas will fill out. 537 up there in Phase A. 283, our smallest one, is Phase B. Phase C is 391, 296 in D, and then we have 339 coming into Phase E, which in essence will be a fairly sizable one. Phase D is probably the weirdest of our 3 phases. That's because when they stopped and restarted, they changed everything. We have this little strand of orange up here. They have in their front yard a drip system. It's part of the front yard custom. It's a horrible drip system and horrible landscaping. We've changed it 3 times, and it still is below the standards that we expect in this community. And we're having a very difficult time ever bringing it up to the standards we like. They're small little parcels. We have over here in that orange area, that's the same monarchs. But what's happened here, in this red and blue area, is we have new models. Because we didn't build out a Springdale area, we changed the models. So things have changed all around here. Once we get the bridge built here, our traffic pattern will change. People will come here, go over there, and some of these people, if they go to the lodge, they go around that way. People down here won't like it because those same speed demons will now be in front of their yard instead of over in the other one. So the traffic patterns change, and that's going to happen. Okay. This is a slide of information that surprised me. 42% of the houses in Phase A have been sold at least once since they were bought initially. That's a pretty high percentage. And you recognize we've got the smaller houses in there. You recognize that back in 2006, 2007, we had people buying houses intending to flip them. And they couldn't flip them. A lot of them went belly up. We have 4 houses, in Phase A that have been sold 5 times in 10 years. That, to me, was an amazing statistic. And I can't give you an answer for it. We've got 25 that are on the 4th buyer. So we have a lot of turnover in portions of Phase A. If you go to the high-value homes there, like the landmarks, you hardly have any turnover. But you go to the smaller house areas, the Springdales, the Monarchs, and the Arbors, you'll see a significant amount of turnover. What does that mean for our community? It means that we probably have a lot of people there who are not involved. They've only been here a short time, they're not going to stay a short time, or they're renters. Nothing wrong with being a renter. You should be involved. But quite often, you just don't feel like it, you don't do it. Phase B, 18%, and Phase C, 16% turnover from the first homeowner. That, again, is not surprising because back in 2009, we were building in B and C. Phase D, right now, is the most homogeneous phase we have because everybody's new there. You know, they've been there 2 years or something, they're still the same homeowner. So if you want to do something where everybody is kind of the same, Phase D is the place to do it. Phase E, I think, Jerry, you were going to check me, didn't they start building there this month? Okay. We're on the threshold of opening Phase E. But that shows you the differences in our community that we have to try to integrate. We have 9 standing committees here in our organization. We want to spread it out so that each of those, eventually 5 phases, have representation in all our committees. Because our committees are what make us work. They're the oil in the engine, the fuel. They keep us all going. They keep things moving. They solve problems. They create new things for us to do. It's important that we have representation from all of our communities. These are aggregate numbers up here. If we say we have 19 members from Phase A, that doesn't necessarily mean every committee has someone from Phase A. It just means in the aggregate we have 19 people from Phase A, and 19 from Phase C, and 12 from Phase D. Really, that is a very good proportional representation. If you go back and look, think of the previous chart, the total population of A, B, and C is pretty well equally represented. Phase D is new. The personal history of talking to people who come here, the first year you're here, you unpack boxes. You find out where things are, and you have a garage sale. The second year, you start thinking about, maybe I should get to know more people. You get into something other than the wine club, and you start meeting more people, and you start getting around. By the third year, you're a junior, and you want to start running the place, or at least learning how to run the place. So you become. So I think that 5%, phase 3, will be significantly larger in a year from now. You can see we have openings, and we have 46 members right now in those 9 committees. We have 1,348 homes, which equates to over 2,000 people, and we have 46 people that are keeping it all moving. You know, there's a problem there, because the farm team for being on the board is the committees. Jean, Claudine, and I all served several years in a committee, or more than one. If we don't get more people involved in our committees, when we build out and have to provide 7 board members, our farm team will have let us down. So we need to do more than just let someone else do it. And one of the things that we'll be promoting is trying to do that. Okay. At build out, this is the way the population distribution will look. And so ideally, if you looked at the committee, we would have 28% of the people from A, 15 from B, and as you can see the numbers up there. You know, that's not perfect. It'll never happen, except by accident. But it's a goal. It's something we could strive for. As we bring new people onto our committees, it's something we should be conscious of. We should also be conscious of the fact that as we build up, we add another 500 houses, our committees need to grow to accommodate the workload that goes with those 500 houses. And that's some of the things that we'll be talking about. The best integrator we have is our clubs. You know, if you play tennis, people don't care where you live. All they care about is if they can beat you. You know, if you're better than them, they don't want you. But our clubs and our groups are the best integrator we've got, because people come from all over. They get to know one another. They get to find out about things that are going on that they didn't know about. And if they don't know about it, they start a rumor, and eventually Jerry has to answer the rumor. You know, but we need to really make sure that we cherish our clubs and our groups. And these are groups with 7 or more members, 77 of them. We have a lot that are 4 or 5 members. That's fine too. But the clubs are really important, and they get publicized in the Breeze. And the first thing everyone does is open the Breeze and see if there are pictures in there, just like the high school yearbook. Having written articles for the Hiking Club for a long time and get beaten about putting the names in there, and of course, it's hard to take the picture, remember everything, and get the right name of the right person, or just give them a name, what the heck. They'll tell you if it's the wrong name, I can assure you of that. But it's, to me that's a reference book right there. To go back to the Breeze and say, oh, that's what so-and-so looks like, or that's the name of that person. So, the Breeze is a wealth of information. Maybe it's not current, maybe it's 2 months behind the time you did something, but it helps keep us in check of what we know. The trails are another good area that is communal. And we have 4 trails right now, A in the red, B in the yellow, the green is the E trail, and this is the C trail. These 3 trails, the 3 trails at the top of there, 1, 2, and 3, are fairly level. And we're going to take advantage of the fact that they're level, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a following segment. This trail gets very steep, but it doesn't get as steep as walking up Four Seasons Circle and weaving in and out amongst the cars and the trees. it's trafficable for people who have limited capabilities of walking. This trail is yet to be built. It's the D Trail. It's right below the bluff. There's housing up here right now, and it's right below it. So those will be our trails. Kevin tells me that they will extend this trail down to the Highland Springs. I asked him if there was a pedestrian gate there. He says, I don't know. So that may be something we'll have to think about. Our trails and streams are part of a habitat area. We pay for it, but we don't control it. The Inland Empire Resource Conservation District, known by the catchy name of IERCD, is the parent for 3 other organizations that have their fingers in our little stream out here called Potrero Creek to protect the wildlife, protect the water. Right now, CAHO takes care of it. In the near future, they will turn that over to the association. And with that comes all the requirements of preserving it, maintaining it, and funding care of it. That is something that will come about, and we pay for it out of our dues. It's not an onerous budget, as far as I've seen so far, but it will be something to do. One of the things to keep in mind, this is the trail here at Base D. You look down on that little area right there, and most of us think that's unsightly and something should be done about it. And a coyote or a badger looks at that, these golden arches, he says, my supper's in there. And so we're not allowed to touch that. If those plants die, that's a home for some little critter, some little morsel that the coyote or bobcat wants. And we have to be able to accept the fact that that's nature and leave it be. And, not send in a message to Jerry every time you walk down there and say the trees need to be cut. Because that's the way it's going to stay. In addition to the stream beds you see up here, they have what they call settling ponds or bioswales or something like that. They're little pond-type areas where they have minute microscopic plant life and animal life growing in there, breeding, doing whatever else it is they do, that we have to maintain as well. It's a big concern from a health standpoint if you see standing water, especially with the mosquitoes at that time of the year. We can't go in there and spray. We can't go in there and drain it. We can watch it, but that's something that we have to be concerned about. It's here in our community, and I don't know if there's a point in time when we're allowed to do something, but right now we're not. One of the things that's going to help unite us is up here. This is Urquhart Creek gate up there. Is when we finally close this loop and bring us all together. My feelings, it's going to be uniting us just like the railroad did. And I see when that happens, we don't have 2 locomotives, but maybe we have 2 wheelchairs go together and pump and say, hey, we're all one big community now. So that's probably a year away, but it's something we should look forward to and celebrate. The last election, many of you who were here for the first time got exposed to delegates. The delegates received your votes, and good. If there weren't a majority, they could vote however they wanted. If there was a majority, they have to cast the votes the way they were submitted to them. The delegate districts are drawn up by the builder, and the builder can change those. In fact, Jerry is working with the builder right now to change those. Probably just to confuse us, but she's working to do it to make them all of the similar size population. And what you can see is they skip. 2-1, delegate 2 and 2 are up there with delegate 3 in the middle. It just bounces all around. There's no rhyme or reason. Well, actually, the rhyme or reason had to do with the style of house being built, not the occupants, but the style of house. It was easier to dump all the kit for an arbor here and all the kit for a laurel over there and tell the builders to go ahead and do it. And so that's the way they did it, and that's the way they drew up the districts. So we're looking at changing that. Now let's switch horses a little bit and talk about the last election that we just had. We had the largest turnover, turnout we ever experienced here. And we basically have two ways to vote. We could vote for the status quo, or we could vote for change. And if you total up the status quo votes down here in blue, and you add up the votes for the change, you see that in over 60% of every district, there was a vote for change, which is really a sign that the entire community wanted to do something. I'm not sure that anybody knew what it meant, but they knew what it didn't mean. But the point is, we got 60% of the population to vote kind of for the same thing. What's really significant about that is there's going to be a time in the near future we want to change our governing documents, the CC&Rs and the bylaws. To do that, in the last election, we had 1,364 total population. We have to have 50% plus 1, which is 683. We had 1,003 people vote, and 692 people voted for change. That's 9 more than we needed. Had we been doing a CC&R change, we would have passed. Skin of our teeth, but we would have passed. So it's within our reach to think about making some changes to the CC&Rs that might be feasible. It cost us $6,000 to run that election. $3,000 went just for selecting the delegates, and mostly mailing. $3,000 went for selecting the new board members. If we just simply voted to eliminate the delegates and had a direct vote, everybody who votes, total up all the votes, we haven't. No district delegates. We would save $3,000. So the question that I will propose to the board is it worthwhile to attempt to make a CC&R change, to eliminate the delegate system in order to save $3,000 in an election? We vote every year. So every year, we're going to be spending $6,000 under the current rules. Sooner or later, we're going to have to change our CC&Rs anyway. Do we want to continue to spend that kind of money each year without taking a chance on eliminating the requirement for the district delegates? Okay, I'm proposing to the board some initiatives to address these 4 topics: communication, expansion, inclusiveness, and planning. And I'll run through those. The way I do this is anybody can do it, really. You submit a suggestion, and it can come in to Jerry, it can come in to your committee chair, it can come into the board direct, but somehow it gets started. And for those of us on the board, we're going to eventually have to know what we need to make a decision, what kind of a timeline we need, and whether or not we should have had a town hall before we go through all the expense of doing anything else. So if I submit something to the board and say, this is something the board should look at, I will include those three items. And I will take that guidance and have it posted on our webpage and print it out and put it in the library so everybody can see what the chairman or the president of the board submitted to the board for consideration. In communications, we now have a daily report. If you've signed up to get this email, it's called AM Report, comes out 5 days a week. I think we have 130 right now that are doing it. It will tell you three things. What happened yesterday, what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow. It could be something as simple as committee meetings. It could be something like the pump is down on the spa at the summit, or that, well, a perennial one is that we're still working on the internet frontier. That one probably won't for a long time. But it'll tell you when things break down and when things are fixed. If we are going to shut down a gate in order to work on it from 3 to 5 or something, let's say, we'll post it on there. And you can read it and say, okay, I'll use a different entrance and exit here. We're in the process of revising the webpage. The first thing we've done is we've purged breaking news from the 2014 articles and trying to get a little more current. But our webpage is a canned webpage meant to be given out to different communities that has no real fast click on it and go right to what you want. So the communications committee is looking at finding a way to give us a tailored web page. So the things on the front page, if you click on it, it'll immediately take you to something. So maybe you're down to 2 or 3 clicks to eventually find what it is you want. And on that web page, I think most of you are familiar with Meet with Gene. And Meet with Gene, we have people come and ask questions. Gene does research on them and provides an answer. And our feeling is that if one person had that question, there's probably 10 others who have the same question, and 20 others who haven't even thought of asking the question, but will eventually. So we shouldn't just bury it with a direct answer to that person. We should publicize it. So we will have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, on our webpage, and we'll put some in the library. So for new people, or people who've been here a long time and have some requests for new information. So we get as much of that information out as possible so that Gene doesn't have to repeat it. We will be putting articles in the breeze. Gene and Claudine and I sequester 2 pages. So we will share those 2 pages, and each month we will put out information on it. We're making the open board meetings, and you'll see this Thursday, we'll have a screen up here. We'll put some of the information up there to help you understand what it is we're talking about. You know, if we're talking about something that's being worked on, let's say new chairs that are going to go out there at the swimming pool, we'll put a picture of it up there so you can see what it looks like at least, and maybe some pertinent information on the cost. So you won't have to struggle to hear and see what we're talking about. We're going to have a town hall meeting once a month. It may have a topic, or it may just be a free-for-all. Next month, we're having one on the interior lodge redesign effort. So you can be brought up to speed as to where we are. And finally, there's a marquee sign. If you go down the corridor toward the pool room there, you'll see we have that big sign up there for slow readers. Because it shows something up there, and it stays and stays and stays, and it goes again to another one. We can do a lot better than that. We can put something up there that's more pertinent, that goes by quickly because we know you're walking by at 10 miles an hour and don't have time for more than 2 slides, so we'll work on that. So those are some of the things that we're initially doing in communication. Okay, on the trails, we want to expand the capability of people that need assistance when walking to use the trails. We're looking at that right now, and we think we've come up with a way to do it that doesn't expose us to any liability, for someone using the trails. It takes the same approach that our national parks and our California parks use. It says, you have a good head on your shoulder. If you think you can do it, do it. If you don't, don't. You're not forced to go uphill or downhill. There are some things we will have to do, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Crosswalks. We now have a crosswalk painted out here in front of the entrance area, but we don't have enough of them. We face two great hazards here, one being ourselves and the other being crossing Four Seasons Circle Drive. We need to put crosswalks in there. We're looking at facilities, and I think all of you know we've got ad hoc committee meetings that are going on about that, and that's something we have to look at. And finally, we're looking at the committees. And I'm proposing to the board that they ask the committees to consider adding 2 positions on each committee because we have grown and we need more people. On some of the committees aren't filled out. And adding 2 positions, you kind of wonder, well, why are we doing that? Well, we hope to fill them out. But we have some committees that are more popular, and we need to get more people on them. Again, this is the farm team for our board members. Where did it go? Okay. On the trails, you can see at the entrance, we have that lip up there. We can smooth that out with just plain old raking the dirt up next to it. So if you're on a stroller and you're rolling up, you can roll right up. A very simple thing to do to make it easier for being on the trails. One of the things we need, and I speak to everyone in here, is we need people who are using strollers and wheelchairs or in some other way have limited mobility to attend the meetings for landscape, safety, and facilities, EPP, and social, and advise them. Because we don't know if we're doing something that's going to make it more difficult for you, or if we can do something that will make it more easy for you to navigate those areas. So we need your input. You don't have to be on the committee. You just have to come and advise us. It would be ideal if you formed a club and a club representative, but we don't know, so you have to tell us. The crosswalks, again, this one is painted, and then you go around the corner, you have ramps that go across, no crosswalk. We own the streets from the windmill up to the summit. Cahoe owns from the summit on over. We can, in fact, paint these with in our authority. And we are asking Cahoe to allow us to paint the crosswalks on the ones that they still own. Particularly up there by the summit. If you're coming down Mesa Verde and want to cross over, there is no crosswalk. If you're going up Trail C and want to cross over, there's no crosswalk. So we need to address that. Okay. In addition to larger committees, I'm asking the board to take a look at bringing the salon under the umbrella of the Bistro Committee. The Bistro Committee is our landlord for the bistro. They address the problems that are unique to the bistro. We don't have that same service that we provide to the salon, and we need to do that. If they need more people to do it, and they might, ask us, and we would then address that issue. Phases C, D, and E no longer have a front yard cost center. The landscape committee does not inspect them on a weekly basis. Who does? No one. Yeah, we're supposed to maintain, the same look throughout our community. We don't have any one committee that does that. It would be impossible for the landscape committee to do it because they don't know what the front yard's supposed to look like, what it's authorized. The only one who does is the Architectural Review Committee, and they're sort of busy right now. Somehow we have to address that because walking around you can see that things tend to be overgrown. And I don't know if it's the wind here or not, but somehow we seem to see lawn art appearing that was never there in the original approved plan on several yards. It must just blow in or something. And the only one who knows what's approved and what isn't approved is in the art. So that makes it difficult for anyone other than the art to be able to walk by on a periodic basis and say, wait a minute, you need to get that in your plan here, approved, so we can do that. Electronic communications. We have a great communications committee. They produce a world-class magazine called The Breeze. And we've got many, many compliments on it. But that sucks up all the talent. And we don't have an electronic counterpart to them to address the people who are now moving in and have moved in, who don't rely on print communication. They want it right there instantly. And we need to expand our communications committee to take a look at that. And finally, kind of summarizing it all, we need to allow the chairperson of each committee to come in and say, I need more people. But let the chairperson of the committee right-size the committee. One size doesn't fit all when it comes to committees. So I'm going to ask the board to address all of those issues. Okay. Let's see, I talked about that. Okay. In the committees, we also have to consider the fact that we have 3 budgets. We have the common area budget, which is generally everything. We have the Front Yard Cost Center, and we have the Springdales. And each of those other 2 have their own budget. And they need to be given the opportunity to be represented on the budget committee. Whether they choose to or not, that's their problem. But the fact of the matter is, it's their budget for their community, and we need to make sure that they have the opportunity to be on it at all times. I don't know that there's a problem, but I'm saying that we need to make sure in our documentation that we afford them that opportunity. We need to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the fact that we have an open and fair selection process, that we don't just, take our friend. If you've been waiting for a year to get on a committee and an opening pops up, and then they pick someone without even thinking about you, that's not open and fair. So it's sort of like civil service. We need to have an established procedure and do that. I sent a package to the board, and the board will forward it on, and if they approve it, to say address term limits for the committees. It doesn't say make term limits, it says address it. Look at it, hold a town hall meeting, get input, and then make your recommendation back to the board. And we need to have some positions in some of the committees that are protected because of either technical expertise or some type of professional expertise. On the budget committee, I want to make sure we have people on there that have a background in budgeting. On EPP, I want to make sure we have someone on there that has experience either operating the radios or has a background that has worked in an emergency situation. Things like that we need to be considering. Okay. I think we need, as we approach build-out, to start expanding our vision into looking at a permanent, starting out with ad hoc, but making it permanent, maybe a planning committee that continuously looks at all of our facilities and find out, what changes we have to make. And finally, what I consider most important, we need an ad hoc building committee. And let me talk about that for a few minutes. Because a couple of weeks ago, I went up to a Four Seasons development in Northern California that has gone through build-out. This is a community of 463 houses. It built out in 5 years. And it does not have a professional staff. The members take care of themselves, and they have a few people that they bring in. When they went through build-out, they had a 83-page CCNR. They wintered it down to 81 pages by taking 20 pages at a time, rewriting them, sending them to the lawyer, getting them back from the lawyer, taking them out, going around their entire 463 houses. Again, they are built out in 5 years, so they're pretty much all similar. And once they had that 20 pages perfected, they put it on the shelf and took down another 20 pages and did it. It took them 2 years to do it. Our CC&Rs are 114, 117 pages. It's going to take us more than 2 years to do something like that. The next problem they ran into is when Kehoe, well, first of all, about a year before build-out, Kehoe disappeared. They had got a contract on the last house to be built. There wasn't any need for a sales office or sales personnel. All that was left was construction people. Their 2 members of their 5-member board no longer appeared anywhere, so the 3 members ran it. If they had questions about anything, they had to make phone calls somewhere. There was no one on site to answer. But as they got closer and closer, the Kehoe was more and more anxious to leave. And they started looking at the building plan for the entire development and saw that there was supposed to be a community garden built. And Kehoe was anxious. He said, look, we budgeted $60,000 for that. We'll give you the $60,000 and you build it, and we're gone. They did, and they were. And the community was able to build that community garden for $110,000. It seems that the budget estimate developed 15 years prior was inadequate for when they built out. And no one in their small community was, I don't want to say savvy enough, but let's just say they were naive enough about building matters to not understand that in 15 years, labor costs went up, parts costs went up, everything, regulations came in, and when we look at ourselves, our budget estimates quite easily could have been made 20 years before we go to build out. So if we're offered the opportunity, we have to be prepared and ready to take a look at that. There's an area outside the front gate up here. Nobody knows. Is that going to be part of us, or isn't it? You know, when they tell us, what are we going to say? Okay, we'll take them. We'll build a bridge across a river we can't go across because it's part of the conservancy. We'll build another gate. I don't know. No, none of us know. But we have to be prepared to address that on a very short term. So we have to have some of the professional people that live in our community help us get ready for what's going to happen in the next 3 years as we approach build-out. Because we're not ready right now. You know, there's going to be changes made to our, what I call the playground, which is the area out there alongside the lodges where we entertain ourselves. Parking is going to become a real problem. I mentioned the fact that we have 500 more houses, and yet this is the central node. And if you come by here on Fashion Show Day, you're going to be parking down there by the windmill. You know, we don't have enough parking. How do we address that? And finally, there are some special interests. Dog park is one. You know, are we going to do it? Yes or no? We have to be prepared to look at that. Finally, we passed our 10th anniversary in October of last year. What that means is the builder didn't get done in time. He was supposed to be out of here in 10 years, and he had protected 4 seats on the board in order to do that. He missed his deadline. He now has to relinquish 2 seats on the board. So we will now be holding a special election for those 2 seats. And this is an announcement that get your applications in as quickly as possible, because we're looking for an election in August, and if you want put it in the breeze, they're gonna have to do it by the 10th of June. Write up, who you are, why you should be on the board, and what you hope to accomplish. See, things sometimes happen faster than we anticipate. We are right now, or will be after Thursday's meeting, a 5-member board with 2 vacancies. The good thing is the association is now in control of the board. And that's a difference. So we'll be calling the shots from here on out. So